Hello, my name is Johanna Cullen and I'm the Senko at the Vale Academy in Dunstable. And today I'm going to be talking to you about meeting the needs of children with ADHD. The aims of this session are for you to be able to understand what ADHD is and how it impacts on learning, be able to identify ADHD by recognising the signs, and have a range of high-impact strategies to effectively teach and support children with ADHD. ADHD is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Traditionally, most people associate ADHD with bad behaviour. However, ADHD is not just about naughtiness, and there are many different behaviour characteristics which make up a diagnosis of ADHD. So before we move on, I would like you to think of a child you have worked with who has ADHD. Make a list of their characteristics. Take a moment and pause the video. Here are a list of some possible characteristics. Do any of them match those that you've written down on your list? There are three main characteristics that are linked to ADHD. These are inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Inattention characteristics. Regularly has difficulty sustaining attention in classroom-based tasks or play. Very easily distracted, forgetful, and loses things. Does not appear to listen when being spoken to. Does not give close attention to detail. Makes careless mistakes. Does not follow instructions through. Does not finish work or task set. Poor organisation. Avoids tasks which require sustained concentration. Hyperactivity characteristics. Fidgets. Leave seats or classroom situations when they are expected to remain where they are. Cannot sit still or squirms in their seats. Runs or climbs in situations when it is inappropriate. Is very noisy when engaged in leisure activities and presents with excessive talking. Impulsivity characteristics. Has difficulty waiting for turns. Interrupts. Intrudes on what others are saying, and blurts out answers or joins in mid-conversation. Many children will occasionally show one or all of the three main characteristics. You need to think about whether the characteristics persist over a period of time and cannot be attributed to being tired, stressed, or ill. Teachers should seek further support when the characteristics persist and all other possibilities such as illness or stress can be ruled out. ADHD is a label often applied to children who appear naughty, but it can also be applied to children suffering from emotional and behaviour difficulties. Symptoms can be inconsistent, which can confuse and frustrate teachers. Symptoms can seem to come and go, with the child able to sustain attention to a task at times. This can lead to some teachers to believe that the child is doing it on purpose and is fully in control and knows exactly what they are doing. The main problem for children with ADHD is sustaining a consistent level of performance. And sounds and issues most children can ignore are highly intrusive for a child with ADHD. For children with ADHD, everything appears to happen at once, which for them creates a state of inner turmoil, anxiety and panic. This causes them to lose perspective and means that they have difficulty relating to others. It can be very hard to understand or empathise with a child who has ADHD in your class, especially when they are being quite disruptive. Children with ADHD can be very imaginative and intuitive and have many skills and attributes. Therefore, the careful teaching and management of children with ADHD is vital to help them learn, grow and flourish. You should always refer where you can to children with ADHD and not ADHD children. This is because the focus must be on the children and the teachers must depersonalise the symptoms. All children need structure and consistent routine. However, this is far more important for children with ADHD. Differentiation, in terms of support for children with ADHD, relates to the delivery of the curriculum in the terms of content, style, format, application and quantity. Underpinning all of the other features are the relationships between adults working with the children and the children themselves. Teachers need to be strong and resilient to support children with ADHD. They need to be patient and calm and definitely have a sense of humour. A cohesive structure is achieved when teachers consistently apply systems. Children with ADHD need a regular, unchangeable timetable, which we know is not always practical, but it's the best way to support them. Children with ADHD need structure, and yet more structure. Structure is the key to effective support for children with ADHD. The trick to effective support is how teachers sell the process to them, because children with ADHD will, on the surface, find structure boring. The worst situation for a child with ADHD is different classes on different days in different rooms with different adults. Best practice is for children with ADHD to start the day when the daily activities are outlined by a member of staff. Children with ADHD should have a specific desk, preferably seated on their own but within the mainstream class. And storage areas should be close to the classroom to enable easy organisation and access to books and materials. Any behaviour, reward or sanction systems need to be applied immediately. Long-term goals and rewards are not effective for children with ADHD. Rewards need to be instant, consistently applied and tangible because children with ADHD live in the present. Children with ADHD find it impossible to look at the future, and once the moment is past, it becomes history. This is one of the reasons why children with ADHD struggle to accept responsibility for their actions. The key to a successful behavioural system is to find a system which motivates the child. The best system for children with ADHD are ones which involve children gaining or losing rewards in accordance to the completion of tasks or behaviour targets. Reward systems will depend on the age of the child. Teachers should implement a graduated response to negative behaviour. This should start with a non-verbal response, such as the old teacher stare, to removal from the classroom, which is the very final stage and should not be used until every other strategy has been exhausted. Teachers should establish clear expectations of what you expect the children to produce academically, and be explicit about the sanctions for tasks which are not completed. Basically, flashpoints occur at any time or lesson where there is less structure. There should be a high level of supervision at playtimes, PE, science and DT, school trips or residential visits. You should try to engage the children in supervised activities to avoid poor behaviour. And when putting children into groups, limit the size of the groups that contain children with ADHD to 2. When needed, complete risk assessments to ensure that all activities are safe and explained to children. Children with ADHD need supportive relationships with adults who understand, nurture and forgive them no matter what sin they have committed. The key quality supportive adults require is patience. The adult's main role is to help children with ADHD cope with the complexities of relationships. Every adult in a school should strive to be a supportive adult. Strategies for behaviour. Nurture every child and make sure that there are no throwaway kids that the teachers and school give up on. Try to develop a system where children are taught and rewarded to stop and think before acting. The overall aim of any behavioural system should be to get to a point where children are self-monitoring their behaviour in terms of completing tasks, behaviour and conforming to rules. Any behaviour system should provide children with a range of alternative strategies to resolve conflicts. Teachers should strive to prevent problems by recognising pitfalls before they happen. A way that my school supports this is completing individual care management plans for children with high needs behaviours. On this plan, we describe what behaviour might look like from children at different stages of those behaviours. We might list common triggers, risk assess behaviour, but we go through the de-escalation skills and put in ones that will work for particular children and ones to avoid, so not to trigger their behaviour further. We also on this form review support that they have in place. This is then shared with other members of staff so that any staff working with these children can support their behaviour effectively. If at first you don't succeed, we need to show resilience and persevere when faced with problems. And it is vital that schools should fight for every pupil, no matter how difficult and disruptive they can be. You could be their last chance. Children with ADHD have to overcome a double whammy of inattention, hyperactivity and impulsivity, coupled often with learning problems in reading, spelling, writing, maths and language. This is why teachers must differentiate and personalise learning for children with ADHD. ADHD children have a non-traditional learning style, and if schools are to effectively meet their needs, they must adapt and support children to cope with the issues associated with studying many subjects. Schools cannot assume that one size fits all when it comes to teaching and provision for children with ADHD. Traditional teaching methods such as standing at the front of the classroom, doing a starter, an input and then work don't work with children with ADHD. We must differentiate the lessons to ensure that success and effective learning for children with ADHD. We also need to help children develop the learning skills of active listening, recording and taking notes, study skills, taking tests and solving problems. For children that may have difficulty concentrating for a sustained amount of time, movement breaks may stop behaviour before they happen. A way to do this is to download cards like I'm showing you on the screen right now, which are just from Twinkle, and having them in a box in the corner of your room. Identifying when a child might need a movement break, they go choose a card and do the activity on the card. This should help them with their hyperactivity. Many children with ADHD not only struggle with concentration, but many aspects of literacy too. Handwriting is often a particular bone of contention in classrooms, with some teachers demanding neatness and insisting children copy over and over again until it is just so. It is important that teachers need to think about what they are trying to achieve. Is neat handwriting the only important thing? You could ask a child with ADHD to record their work using pictures or diagrams instead of having to write all the time. ICT and computers can be very useful. Handwriting should be taught as a separate skill to the nitty-gritty of literacy lessons. The same goes for spelling, which is another discipline which should maybe be taught separately to an English lesson. Allow children to record in different ways, such as pictures, diagrams, recording stories, or using visual aids and IT. Maybe allow children to answer verbally, or allow children to start writing a story, then complete the rest with pictures, or they can complete it verbally. The use of drama is a key tool for teachers working with children diagnosed with ADHD. Another method to help with writing is using codes or coloured stickers to agree with a child how much they need to complete, using a must, should and could system, linked back to some rewards. Children with ADHD may struggle in maths because of their poor attention to detail and getting bored and distracted easily. They will also find the vocabulary and language used to explain concepts confusing. Children with ADHD will often struggle with sequential nature of maths, such as learning the rules of long multiplication or division. Do not overload children with too many questions or problems to solve. If using a worksheet, cut out each question individually so that children can focus on that one at a time. Use computers and maths games. Break work or problems down into chunks. Use simple language or explain the meaning of vocabulary that you use, and allow children more time to complete tests. Children with ADHD may struggle in science and DT because of their impulsivity, leading to teachers becoming concerned for their safety and that of others. If staff have concerns, they should create a risk assessment for an activity, highlighting any activity that may pose danger and assessing what they can put in place to minimise the risk. However, it is vital that we do not narrow the curriculum for children because of their needs. Many children with ADHD love science and DT because it is active. They do not need to sit in their seats and they can handle and manipulate a range of materials. Ensure adequate supervision of experiments and building activities. Group children so that ADHD children are placed with good, sensible role models. Explain any scientific or DT vocabulary. And provide children with templates to record the outcome of experiments and allow a range of recording methods. And remember to break tasks down into smaller chunks. Children with ADHD can often be found sitting on computers for long periods of time because they keep them out of trouble. Whilst ICT can provide a very useful tool to help children with ADHD, it must never be used as the only strategy or as a replacement for the teacher. ICT used well can allow children to learn in a multisensory way and is a great way of enthusing and stimulating children to learn. Children with ADHD feel safe when learning on a computer because to them it is not threatening and they can set the pace of their own learning. Ensure that technology works to avoid anger and frustration. Ensure that you have strong internet safety firewalls. Provide adapted keyboards if needed and select software used very carefully. Remember not to expect children to touch type or produce a large amount of typed work. So, you can become an ADHD hero. Teaching children with ADHD can be exhausting, but with a few simple tips, you can become a teaching champion. Active multisensory teaching and learning, small manageable chunks of teaching and learning, realistic expectations of children. Remember to teach language, definitions and vocabulary. Stay calm and don't shout. Remember to have a good sense of humour to make lessons fun. Gain support from colleagues and always remember to work as a team.